Welcome to our webinar on effective parenting with a very important emphasis on courage and self-esteem. We have people joining us quickly here, so I'm going to go ahead and give them a moment to tune in, and we'll be right with you. Okay, we have a lot to cover today, so we'll go ahead and get started. And as people come in and join us, they can just catch up. And after our presentation is over today, we will be within a week or so having it up on our website in our multimedia section so that if you've missed any, you're welcome to go back and review it. So again, welcome to our webinar on effective parenting. Our emphasis today is on courage and self-esteem. And we are going to be answering any questions you have at the end of our presentation, but feel free to type in your questions along the way. We're going to have a limited amount of time at the end of the presentation, and I'll read your questions aloud to our parenting expert in the order that they were received. So if you want to type in a question, just go ahead and click on the questions link, type it in, and send it to me, and I will read it to him at the end of the session. Also, if you have trouble hearing us at any time, go ahead and use the phone, use the number provided to call in. And if you're already on the phone and are having trouble hearing us, hang up and call in again. And hopefully that will help with the situation. I believe we have Dr. Popkin on the line. Dr. Popkin, good morning or good afternoon to some of our people listening.
Hi, Monique. Good to be with you again.
If you're not already familiar with Dr. Popkin is president of Active Parenting Publishers. He is the author of several parenting guides, including Active Parenting of Teens, Taming the Spirited Child, and Getting Through to Your Kids. And he is also our spokesperson for Real Parents, Real Answers. Dr. Popkin, why don't you give us a little bit of information about Real Parents, Real Answers?
Sure. Real Parents, Real Answers is really part of a 10-year initiative that's designed primarily to help prevent children and teenagers from smoking. What's unique about Real Parents, Real Answers is it's aimed at giving the parents the support and the tools they need to be part of that solution. There are a lot of wonderful efforts out there that are targeting the kids and the teens themselves, but we believe, and there's good evidence for this, that parents can be a real key part of helping kids make that decision not to smoke. So the website, Real Parents, Real Answers, has been up for a while now, and what I really like about that is it's not just information from the experts giving parents ideas of what to do, but it's parents sharing with each other what's worked for them. So there's a great opportunity through the message boards to really share what you've learned and learn from what other parents have learned, as well as I'll do a blog each month and some other information that can help you learn from maybe the experience of some of the professionals out there also. So I hope you'll tune in after if you haven't already gone to Real Parents, Real Answers or aren't used to using that, you'll take a look at it afterwards. What we'll be discussing today, as with all these webinars, there are really two parts. The first part has been consistently to talk about the prevalence of underage smoking and what we can do about it. But specifically today, we're also going to talk about how to build courage and self-esteem in our kids, not just for helping them make the decision not to smoke, but we'll find out how that underlies and how courage and self-esteem has an influence on really most of our kids' decisions. And then we'll give you a good family enrichment activity to do later at home this week. So let's review a little bit the big picture on youth smoking. Again, this may be a brief review for some of you that have tuned into some of these other webinars, but the good news first is that teen smoking continues to decline. Smoking by 8th graders is down by about 66% compared to the peak. Smoking is down about 54% among 10th graders and 41% among 12th graders. Again, that is good news. It's a tremendous number of lives that are saved by that news. But the bad news part of this picture is that we still have a problem with over a fifth of young people still smoking. 20% of kids when they leave high school smoke. And we know that lifetime smoking habits almost always begin before the age of 18. So that tells us we still have some work to do to make sure fewer and fewer kids get out of high school as smokers. The peak years actually for trying a first cigarette seems to be 6th and 7th grades. So that middle school year is particularly important in terms of trying to get kids to postpone or not smoke at all. Every day, approximately 4,000 kids try their first cigarette. So still big problem out there, and a lot of people, a lot of groups making good efforts to put a dent in those figures. The big question that we face as parents is how do we keep our children from smoking? And as professionals, how do we support parents and kids in not smoking? Today, as I said, we're going to focus on the role of courage and self-esteem in that equation, but take it beyond just smoking and look at how courage and self-esteem really affects virtually every decision that we make and our kids make.
You know, Dr. Popkin, I want to mention here that although today we're focusing on courage and self-esteem, those of our listeners who did not have the chance to see our other webinars, those are also posted on Real Parents, Real Answers in the Multimedia Center. And we would love for them to go and review those if they weren't able to attend.
Sure. There's one on discipline and there's one on communication. So those are two of the key parenting skills that we try to teach through our active parenting courses and through other parent education efforts. I want to give you a little model of 4 variables that influence our lives and how they work and the lives of our kids. The events that happen in an event in this model is anything that happens that, whether you're aware of it or not aware of it, it could be something as seemingly insignificant as the air conditioning unit turning on, or it could be someone offering your teen or your preteen a cigarette. A lot of people think that events cause our feelings. We'll feel angry or we'll feel disappointed, and we'll immediately look to see what caused that event or what caused that feeling as an outside event. You know, someone insulted us, we felt angry. You know, someone offered our kids a cigarette, and maybe we felt angry there too. But what psychologists have known for years is it's not so much the events that cause our feelings, but those events are filtered through our thinking, and that includes our values and our attitudes and whether they're conscious or unconscious, all those beliefs that we have stored up. That determines what we feel about the event. And the proof for that is that you can take the same event experienced by 2 different people, and they'll have 2 different feelings. So someone could insult someone, and one person feels angry, and the other person maybe feels a sense of disdain for the person. So anger or disdain or maybe even pity. So again, it's not the event that causes our feelings, but it's what we've come to think about events. And together, the thinking and the feeling give us feedback, and it triggers what we do about that event. So depending on what our attitudes and values are, we'll do one thing or another. What we do then influences the event, because if it's another person, they have their own think, feel, do cycle, so they're thinking about what we did, and they're feeling about it, and they're doing something else. So it becomes an interactive cycle between us and others, or between us and events in our lives. That's important to kind of keep in mind, because those thoughts, feelings, and behavior can be for better or for worse. Obviously, we can take positive action, or we can take negative action. We can make events better in our lives, or we can get mired down in, endless problems. Now, there are a couple of different qualities or attributes that I want to talk about. And let me tell you a story before I get into this. This is one that I tell in the active parenting program about a little boy that was afraid of the dark. And he was maybe 4 or 5 years old and lived out in the country a long time ago, back when there was a group of men that used to roam the earth in the early morning hours and deliver the milk. They were called milkmen. If you've never seen one, ask your parents, your grandparents, and they'll tell you about them. But this little boy, his mother was trying to encourage him to get over his fear of the dark, so she said, go out and bring in the milk. And the little boy didn't want to go outside. He looked at the door, and he looked at his mother, and looked at the dark night, and he just wouldn't go. And mother, trying to find some words of encouragement, said, well, God is out there. He'll protect you. The little boy looked at Mom again and looked at the door, and his trembling hand opened the door a little bit, and he stuck his hand out into the night and said, if you're out there, God, hand me the milk. And what I like about that story is that we all have had times in our life and known people who have gone through life waiting for someone else to hand them the milk. What they lacked was the same thing that little boy lacked, was the courage to go for it. So the first quality that we really want to talk about today, it really derives from the French word coeur, C-O-E-U-R. You know any French, you know that it means heart. And I define it in active parenting as the confidence to take a known risk for a known purpose. Now, it's not recklessness. It's not just going off half-cocked and, running headlong into disaster. It's a known risk. You know what the risk is, but there's a purpose worth taking this risk for. And having the heart or the courage to go for it is what eventually produces positive action that more often than not will eventually lead to success. And I say eventually because, sometimes when you have the courage to go for it, you fail. But if you've got really courage at that core of your personality, if your child has developed that courage to get up and try again, to dust himself off, and more importantly, to learn from the mistakes and the experience what to do differently next time, eventually they'll get it right. They'll either prepare better, they'll learn something to avoid a mistake, and people that have the courage to keep going forward eventually find a way to succeed. Where people and children that become discouraged, when they have a feeling of discouragement at their core, they more often take a negative action. Remember back to the think, feel, do cycle. Their feeling of discouragement leads to doing things that are easier. They take a shortcut to achieving their needs and their goals, and often those shortcuts are negative through misbehavior or through other inappropriate and ineffective behavior. Smoking, for example. A kid that's discouraged feels like, things aren't going well, they're not achieving much, they're afraid of a lot of things, and they're offered a chance to smoke or do something else negative, that may pep them up a little bit. They may give them a little bit of good feeling, an easier way to feel good about themselves a little bit. But unfortunately, that leads to failure more often than not. So discouragement produces more negative action, which leads more to a failure, which is at the event point in the cycle again. Encouragement, when we encourage kids, when they feel a sense of courage, they're more likely to take the positive action and success. So we're going to talk about how we can encourage kids, how we can provide encouragement as events in their life to produce that feeling of courage and success. Now, there's another quality that is key to this discussion also. Where does courage come from? It comes from a word that's often misinterpreted in our society. Self-esteem gets a lot of negative feedback because a lot of people have used it simply to hype themselves and their kids. Self-esteem really isn't really about hype. Self-esteem is simply the opinion you have of yourself. What kind of esteem do you hold yourself in? For a child, what kind of esteem do they hold themselves in? And self-esteem in that think, feel, do cycle is a thought. It's a belief about yourself. Gee, I've got pretty good abilities, pretty good talents. I've got a decent shot at success. I know that even if I don't succeed, that I'm worthwhile, that my parents, care about me, that that I can learn from my mistake. That kind of self-esteem produces courage. Kids with high self-esteem believe that they have a good chance to succeed. And in the case of smoking, it gives them the confidence to say no when being pressured to smoke or engage in other negative behaviors. So self-esteem, high self-esteem produces courage, which produces positive behavior, which often leads to more success. Let's take a look at the next slide. We'll see how this fits into the think, feel, do cycle more graphically. Oh, got another slide there too. Okay, low self-esteem leads to discouragement, and low self-esteem discourages kids from taking risks, or they take unwise risks because they don't really value themselves very well. Now, if we go to the graphic of the two think, feel, do cycles, I think this will all come together for you. It's sometimes kind of hard to get it just from the words. Let's look at this first on the left. We call it failure cycle. And you can start this cycle anywhere. The thing about a cycle is that change at any point in the cycle filters throughout the cycle. So it doesn't really matter where you start. Let's start with the thinking. A child or even adult with lower self-esteem, and let's say thinking, weaker values. They don't maybe believe in honesty as strongly, or they don't believe in health, taking care of themselves as well as they might. That lower self-esteem produces a feeling of discouragement. I don't really feel like taking risks. I don't think I'm going to succeed. It makes sense, doesn't it, that if you don't think you got much chance of winning or succeeding, and you lack courage, then you're not going to want to take those positive risks. Look for easier negative behaviors, ways to meet your goals. You can rebel instead of learning to cooperate as a way of achieving power in your life, for example. The negative behavior then triggers negative feedback and failure, as events in the child's life. That tends to lower their self-esteem more, creates more feelings of discouragement, more negative behavior, and it goes down and down into a failure cycle. And when kids or adults get into those kind of failure cycles, one of the ways that they can get a little bit of temporary relief is by ingesting some chemicals. And that's where the addiction process kicks in. It can be drugs, alcohol, tobacco is the drug that we're talking about in this particular program. But there are a lot of things that people do and kids can do to feel better about themselves temporarily. Unfortunately, they as a behavior do the tobacco or the drugs, what have you. Again, more negative feedback and failure, lower self-esteem, more discouragement. So the opposite, the success cycle, yeah.
I had a question.
Sure.
Is it possible to give too much encouragement to a child and therefore give them maybe a false sense of reality? Like, for instance, telling them that they did a great job at something when really they're not good at that task?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons self-esteem has gotten a bad rap over the years. That it's not giving them too much self-esteem. It's giving them false encouragement. It's telling them things that aren't true. You want to keep maybe that. We'll talk more about that when we talk about encouragement in a little bit. But you want to keep your encouragement based on the truth as you see it. So if your child brings you in your picture that's not very good, you can still encourage that picture. You can encourage the effort. I really like that you like to draw. That's really cool. Or find out one thing about the picture that you like. I like the way you're using blue. That's, you really, that's really a nice, bright color. Or whatever it is. But when everything is wonderful, when your child grows up thinking that they hung the moon and they can do no wrong, and then they get to school and they find out that, well, maybe they're not the greatest artist in the world or athlete or scholar or what have you, then it can be a real deflating experience. So you want to keep your encouragement focused on reality and not just puff them up. And also you don't want to use encouragement or self-esteem as an excuse not to discipline and set limits. Kids need to know that there's some rules about life and some guidelines, and parents are there to enforce those rules and limits. That actually increases self-esteem. There's a story, again, I tell in active parenting about a boy that's walking on a beach, and a psychologist is walking on a beach, and he sees a little boy sitting on the shore, and he asks the little boy, "What are you doing?" And the little boy says, "I'm watching the waves roll in." The psychologist said, and what have you learned from that? The little boy says that I can't stop the waves from rolling in. And the psychologist says, and how do you feel about that? And the little boy says, relieved. It's a relief for kids to know that there are limits, that there is something bigger, more powerful than they are. In fact, in addiction treatment programs, the 12-step programs, the first step is to accept that there's a power in the universe greater than yourself, and to accept that you're not omnipotent, that we as adults as well as kids need to know that there's some limits to our power. So anyway, let me move on to the success cycle. This is what we want to get our kids into when they have a sense of high self-esteem and strong values. Let's say, again, use an example of valuing health and responsibility and cooperation, and those kind of values underlying a good sense of self-esteem. That I've got abilities and I've got good values, and, I can succeed, and even when I fail, I can get back up, and it's not the end of the world. They're going to feel encouraged. They're going to have more heart, more courage to take a known risk for a known purpose, and that's producing positive behavior. They'll work hard in school. They won't give up easily. They'll, take a risk to make friends. They'll, do what it takes to learn from their experience, and eventually they'll meet positive feedback from others in their environment and success that generates more self-esteem, more courage, more positive behavior, and they get into a success cycle where it just kind of feeds on itself. What we're trying to do as parents is to look for opportunities to encourage our kids. Where can parents encourage? If you look at the next slide, you can encourage at any one of these four areas: the think, the feel, or the do. Again, because it's a cycle, if you change at any point in the cycle, it filters throughout the cycle. It's a system. So we can encourage at positive events, help limit negative influences on our kids. You want to kind of put them in environments where the leaders are encouraging, the teachers are encouraging. Doesn't mean they don't, again, discipline, that they don't sometimes discourage, but they're basically positive, encouraging people. And you want to do that for yourself. You want to, and we'll look at this in a minute, how parents can avoid discouraging their kids and look for ways to encourage them, how we can become encouraging events in our kids' lives. We want to encourage positive values and rational beliefs. Again, in terms of smoking and other health risks, start to encourage kids at a very young age to value health and their bodies and taking care of themselves, and build that value as a core value. Rational beliefs. If kids, have a belief that is irrational, for instance, nobody likes me, then challenge that gently, but help them learn that, because some people don't like you doesn't mean nobody likes you. Everybody needs some friends, but nobody needs any certain group of friends. So you can help them straighten out some of their beliefs gently. Feelings. We've talked about this a great deal in the webinar about communication, because it's such an encouraging thing to have someone that you, particularly someone that you, believe in and look up to, like a parent or a teacher, recognize your feelings and accept them. So we want to learn to identify our kids' feelings, to respond to those feelings, to help them feel felt, as the lingo goes these days, so they feel like somebody else really gets them at a feeling level. And we want to, learn to listen to the message behind the feelings. And finally, the positive behavior. We can encourage self-esteem and courage by helping kids learn to behave positively. That means helping them learn to solve problems, helping them learn where the limits are, to use effective, respectful forms of discipline, not going off in rants and raves and, harsh punishments that maybe rob them of self-esteem and courage, but to learn to set limits and to discipline more effectively. So let's look a little more at the discouraging and the encouraging events, what we can do to turn discouragement into encouragement. Now, if we leave out the most obvious forms of discouragement, which is abuse and neglect, and look at some more subtle ways parents and teachers and other adults often discourage our kids, there are four that we emphasize in the active parenting courses. First is focusing on mistakes. When kids hear so much more about what they do wrong than what they do right, they start to believe that there's more wrong with them than right with them. And it's very easy for parents to fall into that trap of only commenting on the child's behavior and attitudes and values when they see something's going wrong. It's like you're sitting here in your home or your office and listening to this webinar. Are you thinking about the temperature in the room? If the temperature is pretty comfortable, the answer is probably no. But if it's too hot in your house or your office, or too cold, then it gets your attention. So it's very easy for adults to only tune into kids when they make a mistake. And then we, of course, comment about the mistake. So we need to really retrain ourselves to do more than just deal with mistakes, but to really be able to learn to catch kids doing well. We'll talk about that in a second. The second way we often discourage is we expect too little from our kids. There was a wonderful study done years ago in classrooms where they told the teacher that they're giving an IQ test to all the students in the classroom. And then they hadn't really given an IQ test, but they arbitrarily told the teacher that this half of the room did poorly on the IQ test, and these were the kids that did well. Again, arbitrarily. It had nothing to do with the test or anything. But at the end of the year, the kids that they had told the teacher had done well on the IQ test actually had done better academically at the end of the year than those kids that the teacher had been told had done poorly on the test. It became the expectation of the teacher that determined how well the kids did in the class. When the teacher believed that the child could succeed and do well, they tended to more often. When the teacher believed that they weren't too bright or too swift, they didn't do well. So when we expect too little from kids, we don't expect them to really behave well, or maybe they haven't done well in school and we give up on them instead of expecting them to do better, then they often live down to our expectations. So, and that's again tremendously discouraging when someone you look up to doesn't expect much of you, that they may at some point think, well, gee, I don't have to do too much and I like that, but it really starts to dishearten them. It starts to rob them of self-esteem and courage. On the other hand, if you expect too much, if you go the other way and become a perfectionist, if you're always raising the bar on your child, if it's never quite good enough, but it's got to be more and more perfect, and you withhold your encouragement because you're always wanting to push them to do better and better, that's tremendously discouraging. It's to the child, it's like, I can never do anything to please this person. Why try? I may as well give up. Or they keep trying, maybe they double their efforts, and they become the kind of person that succeeds but never really feels good about their success. And you've known people like that, and maybe you've been that way yourself, that as soon as you have a success, you're already worried about your next performance or the next time someone's going to judge you, and you're nervous about that because it always has to be perfect. You don't give yourself the slack to say, okay, every once in a while I can mess up, or I can come in with a B instead of an A, or a C instead of a B. So avoiding perfectionism is important. And finally, the fourth way that parents and teachers often discourage kids is by overprotecting and pampering. Now, this is kind of a combination one, but overprotecting, one of our jobs as parents is to protect our kids, particularly young kids, from accidents, from health risks like smoking and drinking and things like that. But you can go too far and overprotect your kids too. If you're never willing to let them struggle, if you reach in too early, like the master that sent his student into the woods to watch a cocoon, and the student watched the cocoon for a while and saw the butterfly struggling with the silken fibers and trying to break open the cocoon, and finally the student couldn't wait any longer, and he reached in and he opened up the cocoon for the butterfly and was surprised to see the butterfly flutter a few feet and then spiral to the earth and die. And when he rushed back to the master and said, what happened? The master said, well, when you reached in, you deprived the butterfly of a chance to strengthen its wings in the struggle. So when you break in and you don't let kids struggle with things, whether it's a homework problem or a problem with a friend, or even tying their shoes. Now you got to do it age appropriate. If you've got a 2-year-old trying to tie their shoes, it's going to be frustrating and you're expecting too much from them. But if you got a 6 or 7-year-old that is just having a little bit of trouble, instead of reaching in and overprotecting them, let them struggle with it a little bit. Offer support and encouragement. You can do it. Keep with it. Here, let me give you a little bit of help, but not taking over. Pampering is when you put yourself in your child's service too much. That's when you become a short order cook, so that breakfast is 2 bites of this, 2 bites of that, 2 bites of that, trying to find something they'll eat instead of giving them a choice and then following through with it. It's being the wake-up service for your middle school child instead of buying them an alarm clock, or even your 3rd or 4th grader. It's getting hit up for money every time they want something instead of giving them an allowance and expecting them to make decisions about how they're going to spend their money. So when you pamper and overprotect, you think you're taking real good care of your kids, but in fact you're robbing them of a chance to strengthen their wings in the struggle. So let's look at how each of these 4 discouraging methods can be flip-flopped into encouragement. Instead of focusing on mistakes, we need to learn to build on strengths. That's noticing what your child does well and letting them know. I really appreciate you putting your dishes in the dishwasher. I really like the way you're studying. It's really cool to be learning a second language. And to catch them being good is a phrase that we use sometimes to focus on that. I would say that kids need to hear about 4 or 5 times as many comments about their strengths and things they do well for every mistake or misbehavior that we have to deal with. It's not that you ignore the mistakes and the misbehavior, but you need to focus more of your attention on the strengths. It's like teaching a baby to walk. I'm going to stick with the building on strengths a little bit. How do you help a baby learn to walk? When your child is like a year old and you've been through that experience, you hold them by the hands, you stand them up, you help them take that first step, then a second step, and then maybe 3 steps, and you're clapping at a girl and way to go, and you can do it. And a lot of those positives. And it's 1 step at a time. You don't prop them up against the wall and say, okay, walk across the room to Daddy. And then when they fall over, you say, oh, that's too bad. I guess you'll never learn how to walk. That'd be ridiculous. We know that you need to break it down into small baby steps and to teach them step at a time. So that's what we can do with anything, whether it's learning mathematics, or whether it's learning to be honest, or whether it's learning to hit a baseball. It's breaking it down step by step and encouraging the next step in the process, so they get a lot of success along the way, builds their self-esteem and their courage. So it's A to B, B to C, C to D, not A to Z. Constantly building on the strengths. Okay, then instead of expecting too little with our kids, we want to show confidence. We want to let them know that we have confidence that they can get this, that they can succeed. It may take time, it may be hard, it may take time, but stick with it and you'll be fine. That's actually a little poem that I wrote for a self-esteem curriculum, a character education curriculum called Free the Horses. Again, it's the idea of sometimes it takes time to succeed, but I've got confidence that you can get it. We'll keep at it. Maybe we'll take a break, come back at it tonight or tomorrow, but we'll keep going and you'll get it. So your confidence and your teacher's confidence in your kids can be tremendously encouraging. It can give them the courage to keep going when their own self-esteem starts to waver and they want to give up. But you have to show confidence that's in line with what they're capable of doing. If you got confidence they can fly, that ain't going to work. If you got confidence that your son can hit a home run and he's not yet hitting the ball at all, that's going to just be discouraging also. So your confidence needs to be just a little bit more than they're doing. Just take the next half step. I'll be here. I'll catch you if you fall. I'll help you like you do a baby when they're walking. Instead of expecting too much, instead of being perfectionists, we need to learn to value our kids as they are. Now, all these encouraging things are skills, and you can learn to do them. Some people are just naturally better at them than others. My wife is just wonderful at valuing our kids for who they are. I mean, she just loves them to death and lets them know that they're the most precious thing that God ever created for her. I do it to a lesser extent. I'm not quite as naturally gifted at as that form of encouragement as she is, but it's such a strong gift to give kids, to let them know that win or lose, pass or fail, whether they're in the limelight or line up, that they're still your kids, you still value them, you're still glad that you have them. And if you do that, then they may come out the way the pitcher Tim Wakefield, who's still pitching now, gosh, it's probably been 13, 14 years into a great career. He's been an all-star pitcher many times, and I remember when he was first starting out, his first big game was in a playoff against the Atlanta Braves. And since I'm here in Atlanta, I was a Braves fan. I read the interview where they asked him, again, he must have been about 20 years old at the time, were you nervous about the big game tonight, Tim? And he said, no, not really, because no matter what happens tonight, tomorrow I know 3 things will be true, will still be true. My parents will still love me, my friends will still love me, and God will still love me. So having that belief that he had internal value, whether he succeeded or failed, gave him the confidence to go out there and know that, win or lose, he was still okay. That's really core self-esteem. That's not hyped self-esteem. It's not looking in the mirror and saying, you're really a good person, people like you. It's really that sense that, no matter what happens, my connection with friends, parents, God, whatever are the real core values in your life are still there. So that's a great gift if you can give that to your kids. We didn't all get it from our parents. Sometimes we have to supplement it later with other adults. But that's a wonderful gift if you can learn to value your child. Doesn't mean you approve and accept all misbehavior, but it means you value them. And instead of overprotecting and pampering, we want to stimulate independence. Teach your child to do for themselves. Get them an alarm clock. For a young child, get them a timer so they can learn, when you say, they'll be ready in 5 minutes, you can set a timer for 5 minutes. Or when, I'll come in and read you your story in 10 minutes, set the timer for them. But learn to empower them to be more and more independent instead of overprotecting and pampering. That builds their self-esteem. It builds their courage. You can all remember, a young child saying, "Look at me, Mommy, I did it, by myself." It's such a great feeling, and we want to encourage them, show confidence that they can learn to do for themselves.
Dr. Falcon, I have a question.
Sure.
How should parents handle it if they see their child being friends with someone who's tearing down their self-esteem?
Well, it depends on what age. As kids get older, they're really more and more sensitive about choosing their own friends. So you're not going to be able to just keep them away from those kids as they get older. If it's a 3 or 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, sometimes you can control who they're with. So what you have to do in those kind of situations is talk to your child about whatever the problem that you see, and do it in a way that listens to their feelings, that looks at alternatives. What can you do about this? How do you feel when you're around this person? When they put you down, how do you feel? And to help them understand. I remember even having this talk with our daughter when she was in middle school. She was kind of running with a fast group of friends and she wasn't feeling real good about herself. She wasn't, feeling like she could keep up with them. She didn't really maybe approve of all, what they were into. But, we talked to her one night about the fact that everybody needs friends, but not any particular group of friends. If this group of friends doesn't make you feel good about yourself, then find a group of friends that you feel better about. And within a year, she had a total new group of friends that she stayed friends with throughout high school, and now she's graduated college and is still friends with these girls. So again, sometimes you can do it by just talking to the kids about it, but if you try to be too autocratic, if you go in there and try to force them to pick new friends, you're going to meet some resistance, and again, that's not stimulating their independence. And again, kids will pick up too how they're treated. When you treat your child encouragingly, then they're going to expect to be treated more encouragingly by others. They'll be able to tolerate a discouraging teacher now and then, but when they go to seek their friends and others, they're going to want people that encourage. In fact, I remember a story from one mother that had and her daughter was about 2, and she was encouraging her quite a bit, and it was the same time her daughter was being potty trained. She said she came into the house one day, and the daughter came into the bathroom one day when the mother had just finished using the toilet and hadn't flushed yet, and the little girl kind of toddled over to the toilet and looked down at the toilet and looked up at her mother and said, "Good job, Mommy." And she laughed when she told her, because she said, I guess you really do get what you give to kids. If a child grows up with encouragement, they're going to give encouragement back, not just to us, but to others. Family enrichment activity. One thing you can do, now, 2 things you can do, really. One is to focus on how you can encourage your child every day, how you can focus on the positive, so they start hearing a lot about it, girls, and I appreciate it, and thank yous, and way to go, and hey, I noticed that, and really learn to focus and let them know. But because writing carries extra weight in our society, a really good family enrichment activity that we've been doing through active parenting for 25 years now is to write each of your kids a letter of encouragement. I did this, just by accident. This must have been 30, 35 years ago when I was a young Sunday school teacher, and decided at the end of the year to write each of my students a letter. And I went up just focusing on the positives, things that I appreciated about them, that I enjoyed about being with them for a year as their teacher. And I didn't think much about it when I gave them out right before summer break. But 4 years later, I ran into a woman, the mother of one of these kids, at a reception, a wedding reception. And she came up to me and said, that letter that you gave Alice 4 years ago? Well, it meant so much to her, she still has it pinned to her bulletin board. Now, again, putting it in writing just takes on more weight, and you can go back and reread it. So the the activity is to write each of your kids a letter of encouragement, focus on improvement. And that's a key difference between encouragement and praise. Praise usually waits to the child's finish and focuses on what a great job you did. And that can get kind of old or has some negative ramifications. They never hear from you until it's over. Encouragement focuses again on every step in the learning process, the A to B, the C to D. Focuses on the improvement, the effort, the direction you're heading. That's what gives you courage and helps you keep going. So not necessarily accomplishment, but about improvement. Only write truthful comments. Again, if you hype it, if you blow them up, that balloon's going to burst someday. Maybe sooner or later, but you want to make sure you focus on the small steps. If they're only at step C, talk about how great they're doing at step C. I really like that you're sitting down and really working on your homework for 30 minutes every night. That's great. Be specific about what the improvements are. Again, not just I love you and you're a great kid, but try to find specific things that you love about them and specific things that you like. And also look for ways that their behavior is contributing to the family. It's great, to help kids learn to be helpful. We get so much in life in terms of our own self-esteem and courage by doing for others. And we don't all learn that lesson loud enough as kids, but the way humans are wired, we are a cooperative species. Alone we'd never survive, but by forming cooperative units, we're able to survive and thrive. So teaching kids that they can be helpful to others and to encourage that. I really like the way you helped your little brother. Or I really like, appreciate it when you pitch in and empty the dishwasher. To encourage those kind of behaviors doesn't just get you more of that behavior, although it will, because what you encourage you tend to get more of. But it'll also help build the self-esteem and the courage in your child. So write the letter. You can give it to them. You could actually email it to them. You can put it under their pillow at their plate at breakfast. Don't necessarily expect to get a letter back or to see it on the bulletin board in 4 years, but know that it'll get through at some level. Let's go back to smoking for a minute, just as a little bit of a wrap-up. There's a role model questionnaire that you might want to take a look at. And again, this is just for your own benefit.
I'm sorry, you went to go to
smoking, do you, I think you went backwards. Let's
I'm sorry, I didn't. Here we go.
Smoking, do you smoke cigarettes? If so, how many a day? Have you smoked in front of your kids? Obviously, that's something you want to avoid. But if you have, just learn from the experience. I used to tell clients all the time when I was a therapist, learn to catch yourself with a smile, not a kick. If you kick yourself for mistakes, then that usually kicks yourself in the self-esteem, which lowers your courage, which tends to make you more defensive. You have to learn to look at your mistakes with almost a smile and say, okay, I got to stop doing that, and then really make it a point to stop doing that. Have you warned your kids about smoking while you were smoking? Okay, that's obviously a double cross. Do you allow friends or family to smoke in your house or in front of your kids? Again, something you may want to take a look at not doing anymore. You could ask those kind of questions about alcohol, drugs, and dieting habits, and a lot of things. The idea is that what we model to our kids is important. Now, I'm going to talk out of the other side of my mouth for a second, because even though it's probably one of the best things you could do for your kids if you're a smoker is to tell them, I care enough about you and your health that I'm going to do something that really is really hard, and that's to give up smoking and to do it. I mean, if you're ready to do that and can do that, that's a wonderful gift. But if you're not ready to do that, and I know how hard getting over an addiction can be, if you're not ready or able to do that, that doesn't let you off the hook with your kids. You still want to be able to say to them, it's not okay with me that you smoke. I know I smoke. It's a lousy habit. I wish that I didn't smoke. I wish I had never touched a cigarette. But I'm an adult, and I can make that decision. You're not an adult. It's not your decision to make yet. When you're 21, you can decide for yourself. I hope you'll make the decision not to smoke. But while you're a kid or a teenager, it's not okay. And remember what we said earlier, that almost all smokers start before 18. So if you can postpone it to 21, there's a great chance your child will never smoke. So quit if you can, but if you can't, don't be embarrassed about telling your kids that you can't smoke. It's not okay. I love you enough that I'm willing to do what it takes to keep you from smoking. Influences of growing up in a smoking household. Children of smokers are twice as likely to smoke as children of non-smokers. That's just to back up what we've talked about a little while ago. And again, parents who smoke can still socialize their children against smoking. So don't feel like you're over a barrel if you don't do that. Anything else on that slide? Okay, kids are much more likely to smoke if they're kids smoking in front of them. And let's just go to the summary. Courage and self-esteem, and it says equal healthy choices. I'd say, let's say it this way, courage and self-esteem more often result in healthy choices. It's not 100%. Kids can still make bad choices, but it's going to increase the odds tremendously if they've got good courage and self-esteem. Because they're going to want to take care of their bodies. And they won't need the lift that sometimes unhealthy choices give them. You do get a lift from smoking, from drinking, from those kind of things. If you feel good about yourself naturally and you're succeeding and you're one of those success cycles, you don't need to pump yourself up with that kind of stuff. Courage needed to resist peer pressure to smoke. There's a lot we talk about how to say no without feeling like a jerk with your peers, but it takes a certain amount of courage to say no. Again, you got to believe that these kids will still accept me if I say no, and even if they don't accept me, I can find other kids that do. So it takes courage to resist peer pressure. Kids with high self-esteem are more likely to realize they're too important to hurt themselves by smoking. I like myself. I feel good about myself. Smoking, I know everybody knows now smoking is a terrible risk. I don't need to do that to myself. Self-esteem and courage allow kids to take a stand for what they know is right. We want kids to be able to take a stand against injustice, to be able to stand up for other kids. Bullying has gotten so much attention over the last several years, and one of the places of emphasis is the bystanders. It's not just the bully and the victim, but there are always a lot of bystanders when a bully is bullying, almost always. And if those bystanders have the courage to befriend the victim, the bullies usually back off. They don't like to bully somebody that's got support. So teaching our kids in a lot of ways to have the self-esteem and courage to not only do what's right for them, but then to go beyond themselves and to start looking out for others is the way you build leadership and really a community. And also we as parents can help our children grow confidence and high self-esteem, particularly by becoming encouraging events in their lives and learning to develop our encouragement skills. Again, everybody doesn't have the same amount of encouragement. Some people are natural encouragers. Others need to learn it, but we all can learn it. So let's conclude this webinar. When it comes to making a decision about whether or not to smoke, parents are one of the greatest influences in a child's life. You've got a lot of power. The research shows that kids who believe that their parents will be upset if they smoked are half as likely to smoke as kids that don't know how their parents will feel. But it goes a lot farther than that. When you encourage your kids, when you build on strengths, when you build that self-esteem and courage, then you not only plant the seeds against smoking and other negative behavior, but you start getting them into success cycles. And remember to talk with your kids about not smoking early and often, and to look for opportunities to catch them doing well. Thanks for being with us. And Monique, we have other questions?
Actually, we have a couple. The first question, Dr. Popkin, is how does courage and self-esteem affect socialization?
Socialization meaning the ability to get along well with others, to cooperate. I'm guessing that's how they're using the term. Or socialization in just learning to be humans instead of something more reptilian, which is the way most of us are born. In any event, when you encourage kids, whatever behavior you encourage, you're going to get more of. So if you're trying to encourage socialization like sharing or taking turns, instead of just criticizing kids for being selfish and this and that, which can be very discouraging, catch them doing well. I really like the way you're sharing. I like the way you're taking turns. I like the way you're waiting for your turn. I like the way you helped or you listened or you responded or, whatever you focus on. If you do it systematically, you're going to get more of that. So whether it's a social skill, socialization, or whether it's a sport or anything else. It's a classic example of a college class. They were studying positive reinforcement, type of encouragement, in a psychology class. And the class got together and decided that they would see if they could use encouragement to systematically get the professor to move from his lectern across the stage to the other side of the stage. And they did it without saying a word to him. But every time he took a step in the direction of the side of the room they wanted him to go, they'd look alert, they'd take a note, they'd be wide-eyed. If he happened to move back towards the lectern, they'd yawn or look away or just kind of not be as interested. Within about a half hour, they had moved him all the way across the stage. Again, the subtle power of encouragement, just focusing your attention and your encouragement in the direction you want your child to go is a very powerful way of teaching any social skill or anything else, really.
Okay.
Anything else?
One question asked about a book called Nurture Shock. Are you familiar with it?
Nurture Shock?
Mm-hmm.
No, I haven't heard of that.
Okay. She suggests the book Nurture Shock for everyone. So it's something that our viewers or our listeners might want to check out.
Did she say what it's about?
She didn't.
Okay.
Something to look into.
Nature, nurture.
Nurture
Okay.
Shock. Okay, well, Dr. Popkin, we've run out of time, and several of our attendees have asked if they can find this webinar online, and yes, the answer is yes, that it will be on realparentsrealanswers.com. It will be in our Multimedia Center section, and you might want to give it a few days. We'll pull it up there as quickly as we can. Also, if you want a copy of the presentation today, the PowerPoint presentation, go ahead and go on realparentsrealanswers.com and go to the Dr. Popkins blog, and on there's a question button, and you can send a question to Dr. Popkin asking for that presentation, and we'll get it off to you right away. I think that is all for today. Dr. Popkin, do you have anything else?
Yeah, thank you for being here today, for taking the time out to think about how you can encourage parents or encourage your children. Give yourself a pat on the back for doing that. We all need a lot of self-encouragement too. So good luck, and hope to see you online.
Thank you, Dr. Popkin. Thanks for giving us some insight today. And this concludes our presentation.
Thanks, buddy.